sometimes we get movies that don't give us every little tiny thing that we want. And so, because of that, we fans complain, the studios listen, they scrap everything and start from scratch. When that happens, oftentimes there's an overcorrection. This is the case with the 2006 feature film Superman Returns. Now, as you can see here, I've got the Superman box set, which is possibly my favorite box set that I own. You've got this awesome little holographic thing here in this lovely tin case. Doesn't want to seem to... There it goes. And they had so much faith in Superman Returns that on the back, instead of Christopher Reeve, it's Brandon Routh. Lovely. I mean, I these things always piss me off because they're so fragile. But you know, you've got 4 different discs for the first Superman movie, 3 for Superman 2, obviously only 1 for Superman 3 and 4, and then 2 discs for Superman Returns and a couple of documentaries. I think I've made it clear, Superman the movie is my favorite movie of all time. It's the movie I most associate with being a child, with wonderment. It's literally my first memory is watching Christopher Reeve grab that helicopter. I loved the movie. I've watched it a million times. This is going to seem like heresy. I'm going to say it anyway. Superman Returns is my second favorite Superman movie. And everybody, what about Superman 2? Superman 2 was even better than Superman 1, let alone better than Superman Returns. Not in my opinion, no. Superman 2 is a very good movie in parts, but, and I'm talking about the theatrical cut here, it has a lot of issues, continuity issues with the original, tonal issues. It gets really silly in the Richard Lester parts, and then in the Richard Donner parts, it's more consistent with the original. But if you're talking about Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, that also is inconsistent and tonally weird. And I think Richard Donner actually threw out some stuff that Richard Lester did that worked. For instance, you know, Superman... And I always felt like this was... like Richard Donner had done 2 different takes on this. When Superman is outside the window, General Zod, care to step outside? That line is great. That's like the best part of the movie, that one moment. And then, like in the Richard Donner cut, it's the exact same shot. It's the exact same everything. You get the feeling these 2 shots were shot at the same time, like back to back. And Superman, Zod, haven't you ever heard of freedom of the press? That line sucks. That's a terrible line. It's nowhere near as good. Superman 2, both versions, they're Frankenstein monster movies. They're movies that had immense interference from the producers. And to me, I love Christopher Reeve, I love Margot Kidder, I love Gene Hackman, you know, Terrence Stamp. They're all great in the movie. To me, after the sort of achievement of the first movie, it drops off a cliff. But Superman Returns, in my opinion, was the kind of, at least in my opinion, the clear successor to the original Superman. It obviously also sort of follows Superman 2. It ignores Superman 3 and 4. But now there's problems with it in the making it a sequel idea. Brandon Routh looks younger than Christopher Reeve, even though this is supposed to be like 5 years later. Ditto with Kate Bosworth as Lois Lane. But I felt like, for the most part, everybody sort of matched up. Brandon Routh doesn't have Christopher Reeve's charisma, but I thought he actually was a fairly good successor. He looks like Christopher Reeve. I don't like the costume quite as much, but it is kind of faithful. I mean, they updated it. You can't just have him in tights anymore, which I find sad. But he's got the spit curl and the red underwear. And that's Superman. You know, people now, oh, you got to get rid of those things. No, that's Superman. That's Superman. That's part of what makes him Superman. The action in it, I thought, was really good. Everybody complains, there's no action in the movie. He doesn't punch anything. Superman's not about punching, to me. You want to see a movie where Superman punches everything? Man of Steel. That was the overcorrection that the studio did. The movie, you know, the plot is Superman's been gone for 5 years. He returns. And the impact that has on the world and on the people around him. You know, and on the schemes of one Lex Luthor, now played by Kevin Spacey, who, say what you want about Kevin Spacey nowadays. Kevin Spacey's a damn good actor and was the perfect choice, the only choice for Lex Luthor. How you go from that to Jesse Eisenberg, I don't know. But the movie has a lot of misconceptions about it. And to me, the biggest one, the one that frustrates me, is that it was a box office bomb. The movie made close to $400 million, and everybody's like, yeah, but it cost this much, and it's Bryan Singer, he really overspent on it, blah, 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 blah. Wrong. The Superman Returns budget had to incorporate into it all of the failed Superman movies that they had been trying to make for 20 years. You know, I mean, the obvious most expensive one being Tim Burton's movie, which they had to pay Nicolas Cage. They had to pay Tim Burton because they had pay-or-play contracts. Sets were being built. Things were designed. You know, by the time you get to Superman Returns, you've gone through the Tim Burton Superman. First of all, Superman 5 with Christopher Reeve. The Tim Burton Superman movie. J.J. Abrams took a crack at it. There was supposed to be a Batman versus Superman movie in the early 2000s. I think McG was supposed to do one. All those movies, money went into those. Money went into the scripts. Money went into the production of those movies, none of which happened. And so the Superman Returns budget incorporates all of that. So really, if you took that money out, Superman Returns, which was profitable either way you look at it, would have been a box office success. It was not as big as Batman Begins. But then Batman had been a bankable movie star since 1989. Superman had not been on the screen since 1987. So, you know, considering the fact that it almost made $400 million, a belated sequel that's ignoring two crappy sequels, and the last movie was what, 1980? 79, 80 for Superman 2. $400 million is pretty good. Now, the movie's not perfect, as I mentioned. Superman maybe should have been a bit more mature. Maybe I like Brandon Routh, but they maybe could have gone with a little bit of an older actor. Obviously, they wouldn't because they want to, you know, milk those people for 800 sequels. Kevin Spacey, I think, does equal Gene Hackman, but the fact that it is another land scheme from Lex Luthor is sort of weird. You know, a lot of people talk about Superman stalking Lois Lane. I never had a problem with that. It's Superman. He's lonely. He's come back. He hoped Lois would have been waiting for him. Instead, she's sort of married and has a kid. Um, and it's the sort of tragic side of Superman that he can't have this normal human life that he craves so desperately. But if there is one big issue with the movie, in my opinion, it's Kate Bosworth. She has no charisma at all. I mean, I have not seen her in many other things, but everything I've seen her in, she is so bad, and never more so than here in Superman Returns, that she follows Margot Kidder, who Margot Kidder, to me, still embodies Lois Lane. She's my Lois Lane, just like Christopher Reeve is my Superman. Kate Bosworth, she had no chemistry with Brandon Routh, no chemistry with James Marsden as her husband. She had none of the sass and spunk of Margot Kidder. Just terrible. And the fact that is sort of your second lead, I think really sinks the movie down quite a bit in my estimation. But speaking of James Marsden, I thought he was phenomenal in the movie, and I applaud the movie for making him a nice guy and a heroic guy and a guy that is kind of better for Lois than Superman. You know that Superman is sort of the love of her life, but James Marsden is the guy that's going to be there. He's the guy that's going to raise the kid. He's the guy that's going to, not, fly off to go save people from a burning building. He's going to be the guy who makes dinner when she's late. And yet, in scenes of danger, he steps up. He's not a coward. He's not mean. He's not a jerk. He's not abusive. All those things that they could have done to sort of get Lois and Superman back together, they don't do it with him, and that I think is tremendous. That's one of the movie's sort of high points in the story is that character. So I'm sure many of you will disagree with me, but I think Superman Returns, that's 3.5 out of 5 stars. Like I said, it's my second favorite Superman movie. If Superman 5, now that's a pretty big drop. Superman 4, or Superman, the movie, is 5 stars. So it is a drop of 1.5 stars, but I don't know that anything can sort of reach that summit for me. For some people, Henry Cavill will be your Superman. And that'll be the Superman you saw when you were a kid, and you'll remember that and look back on it fondly. So you could say that I have nostalgia glasses on. But to dispute that, I think Brandon Routh is a very worthy successor. I would have loved to have seen more movies with him as Superman, especially the sort of proposed sequel with I guess it was supposed to be Brainiac, which we still haven't gotten. The fact that we haven't gotten a Brainiac movie, and they've been trying to do that for 30 years, is sort of incredible. But Superman Returns, if you've never seen it because you've heard that it's not very good, check it out. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I was pleasantly surprised. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.